Hey y'all, I wasn't planning on doing a video today, but I saw something today that I really need to address. And for once, it's not Katie Joy. Okay, if you don't know who I am, I'm Suzanne Schiedkemeyer. I used to write a column called No Longer Quivering for Pathos for over 10 years that dealt with the quiverful movement, the religious movement. And the old church I used to go to was part quiverful, all evangelical. And they would have been all over this new revival that I'm going to talk about a little bit. Okay, these are just my opinions. Please don't believe anybody I'm talking about here. I got up this morning like I do every morning, and I looked at all my bookmarks, all my places I like to look at every day to see if there's anything I need to discuss. And this morning I was kind of disgusted and triggered to see some stuff on Fundy Snark. Hey, Kentucky girl. It had to do with the Asbury Revival. And as you well know, I've been openly, I don't want to say critical, but maybe a little bit critical about it because of all the revival I've been through in my life, all these revival things, going to Toronto, going down to Brownsville, going over to the Voice of Apostles, all these different places we were going all the time for this crap. And like I said, I don't see much in the way of personal fruit or even corporate fruit going on coming out of these things. And that's really my own measuring stick for this. Is there fruit? Or is it just people laying around blasted, pretending they're drunk? So I've been skeptical of the Asbury Revival because of all of that, because of everything I've been through and everything I've learned about how these things happen. So my skeptical self and was looking at Fundy Snark this morning. And there was a picture in the back of the revival where someone had an air mattress and they were laying down with a blanket over them wrapped up. And this is what I mean when I say words matter. The way we talk about these things matters tremendously. Funny Snark, they were saying a bunch of stuff about how insane it was. They put down everybody. They put, yeah, take a girl, I know about that. And I'm glad if there's a true revival, it will trigger things. It will re-trigger more revivals. It will re-trigger people repenting. It'll re-trigger all kinds of stuff. Unfortunately, it's triggering me, but that is neither here nor there. So there's a lot going on, and it's triggered a lot of revivals in college campuses, which, how could that be a bad thing? So the Funny Snark people were talking about how insane they were and how they were doing X, Y, and Z and how this was just disgusting and it was disgusting that somebody decided to sleep there and they were so desperate. Well, here's the thing. There are a lot of, I've talked about this before, there's coded language in evangelical town that nobody seems to realize. It's just coded language. So when they start talking about having a desperation for God, that's not necessarily a bad thing, okay? So some of the words that were being used in the post they were critiquing are just evangelical buzzwords the way it happened. And they couldn't get over the person laying down in the back of the revival. It's been my experience that people do that because that's something that you can benefit from if you're in one of these revival situations. Sometimes you just want to lay down and soak in the presence of God. And there are going to be those times at church even where people will do that. So I think that's what this person was doing. They were just resting in the presence of the Lord, or what they perceive to be the presence of the Lord. Because like I said, I haven't been, I don't know for sure if this is a real deal or just more gameplay. But it's a pretty common thing. I can think of so many Toronto conferences I went to where people were just laid out on the floor with the blankets over them. In my own church, that would happen too sometimes. And they would put a little blanket over you so that you wouldn't be exposing yourself. And people would rest in the Lord. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. It's not like they're jumping around making animal noises or doing some of the crazier things that I don't think actually benefit anybody, not at all. So it's just stuck in my craw this week about the way they're talking, because even if you think it's a false revival, it's not the way we talk about these things. What happens is when we use these kinds of languages, we said, oh, they're crazy, oh, this, oh, that. We cut off any lines of communications. It prevents you from being able to speak in those people's lives and say, hey, you might want to consider X, Y, or Z. No, it just stops everything cold. It makes them view you as lesser. It makes you view them as lesser. And that's really not what it's about. We should be each other's brothers and sisters. And I would even venture sometimes each other's keeper. So by using that's not love. Even if it's a revival that Todd Bentley is trying to show up at. Okay, so that's all I really wanted to say today, except that the continuing confloption of Katie Joy saying what she did about Jessa Duggar goes on. And Katie is doing more and more editing and blocking of people. So don't be surprised. There are some people that can't stand any difference of opinion that will go on automatic blocking sprees. And that's kind of wrong. I think that you should at least listen to your critics. It doesn't mean you have to totally agree with them. Sometimes someone will criticize me and I'll just sit with it for a while. It doesn't mean you have to totally agree with them. Sometimes someone will criticize me and I'll just sit with it for a while and consider whether or not they may have had a valid point, because they might have and they might not have. But it just really depends. And there are times when I've had to go back and say, yeah, I was extremely wrong about this, and this is why. Be careful of people who can't do that. They released a statement that big names were not invited. This is supposed to be about reading scripture, hymns, and worships. I hope they stick to that. Kentucky girl, knowing now that this is a Wesleyan college with a Wesleyan Methodist kind of background, I'm a lot less concerned, because I know Methodism. We went to a Methodist church for 10 years, and the Methodists tend to handle things with decency and order. Now, when I was part of my old group, I didn't like decency or order. Now I kind of like it for some things. And I like the fact that the way they're handling. Oh, she did. Great. That's awesome. I like the way they handle things there. When I started reading the article about all the behind the scenes stuff that went on, how they were going out of their way to find lodging for people, food, all sorts of things, because let's face it, this is a small community that does not have the resources that you would have, say, in Lexington or Louisville. So I was reading they were moving it all to Rupp Arena in Lexington. And I think that's probably the best thing for them if they want to do the continual revival thing. They have to have a big enough place and safe enough for everybody to participate. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, having safety and rules and things in place. I know a lot of times in evangelical world, they don't want to do that. They just want to do the thing they want to do. And who cares if it's unsafe? Who cares? Who cares? Who cares? So, yeah, I've seen that so many times. Now, so I'm not saying that they're 100% wrong with some of the things they were saying about people sleeping on the floor there. But you also have to consider this is a community without enough hotel rooms, without enough anything. So there may be people actually who are sleeping on blow-up mattresses between sessions. Revivals used to be huge in Kentucky decades ago. The restoration movement started here. Yeah, I've read about the different revivals they've had at Asbury. So I'm not totally surprised that there's another one there. I am, and I'm not surprised that the Todd Bentleys of this world are trying to get their rear ends there to see what they can take out of it, because that's pretty typical for how they handle things. And I used to love Todd Bentley, but after everything that came out about him, it's just like, no. So this should not be celebrities coming in. Now, I've heard there are a couple who have come in and acted respectfully and just came for prayer, and that's an awesome thing. That would be the only thing I could see that would be right about them showing up. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and go. I'm losing my voice again. I can hear it. So take care of yourselves. Thank you for watching. Do all the YouTube things on the way out of here if you don't mind. And I'll be back maybe later this afternoon, maybe tomorrow. It just depends upon what happens with the spirit moves and whether I have something to talk about. You have a great day too, Kentucky girl.